I'm thrilled to welcome my special guest, Birgit Smith Burton, the CEO of the African American Development Officers and the 2023-24 Global Chair of AFP. And literally, I could go on for 20 minutes just talking about all of your different accomplishments. But Birgit, thank you for being here and
Yeah,
tell the group a little bit more about yourself.
my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm coming to you from a chilly, rainy day in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm,
Um, I'm just getting back from Southwest Michigan, where I have a home as well, where it was gorgeous fall, beautiful fall
yes.
weather. I am about 4 years out of retirement, or 4 years into retirement.
Yeah.
Having worked at Georgia Tech for 25 years and then another year and a half as a consultant. My primary responsibility was foundation relations work.
Yeah.
And so a couple of jobs before that. So I'm nearing about 40 years in the profession. But most recently, as you mentioned, served as the global board chair of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And happy to be the immediate past chair because that was a lot of work. Let me tell
That is
you,
a lot
a
of
lot
work.
of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, great. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank
Now,
you.
today's call is going to be a little different than our usual webinars. We'll have some slides that Birgit will be presenting, but then the majority of the time will be focused on chatting about leadership and some of the challenges leaders are facing right now and how we can address those and strategies that will support you as a leader in this time and in this environment. So, to start us off, Birgit, let's have you share more about the accidental fundraiser and what you've been seeing and hearing from leaders as they manage teams with varying degrees of experience in fundraising.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. This is actually one of my favorite topics to share a lot because of
Yeah.
my own experience. And, I run into people all the time who admittedly, tell me that they consider themselves an accidental fundraiser. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I just hope that in this 10 to 15 minutes that I share this with you, and then we move into discussion and some Q&A, that people will think differently about their experience. And so we understand that in today's climate, with all of the challenges that we're dealing with around shrinking budgets and reduced government funding and limited resources, for the professional fundraiser, um, sometimes they begin questioning their own abilities as they're facing these challenges. And that even rings true more so for those who feel that they didn't choose fundraising as a career, and they consider themselves an accidental fundraiser who have found themselves in this work, and now they're faced with the added pressures to prove their value.
Yeah.
So just to make sure we all understand, an accidental fundraiser is an individual who ends up raising funds for a cause or project without intending to do so. So they could have started in a different role. As my best friend for her private school that she worked for, she was the marketing director. And they one day said, "We need a fundraiser." They said, "You're the marketing director. You're going to be the fundraiser." And then versus the intentional fundraiser, who's the individual who deliberately chooses a career in fundraising, and whether or not they, got a degree in nonprofit management or specifically trained to be a fundraiser and had that in their sights,
Yeah.
they're intentional. So I personally did not plan on a career as a fundraiser. I was headed to Broadway. That was my plan. I studied voice for 8 years, classical, voice, or known as opera, piano. I did musical theater. And then I actually was accepted into a program at the State University of New York at Fredonia, a musical theater program where they only accepted 15 students in the program each year. And the year that I applied, there were nearly 900 applicants. But during my freshman year, my advisor, a white gentleman, told me that I should consider another career, but not because I wasn't talented enough, but because I was Black, and he believed that that was going to make it a more difficult career for me to be successful in. And so those words really stayed with me. And so I moved out of the theater program and majored in media communications. And I was actually working for, or excuse me, interning
Yeah.
for a gentleman who had his own ad agency. And that's when I ended up helping to plan a celebrity golf tournament. And that's how I ended up in fundraising. And I could take 2 hours talking about that. But so my career as a fundraiser, that was around 87. I was just a mere child. And I worked for the United Negro College Fund for 11 years. That was the nonprofit that I helped organize that golf tournament.
Yeah.
And UNCF was really trying to increase diversity in the fundraising profession. So they were recruiting African American young professionals with college degrees and teaching them fundraising. So I was one of those. And then I landed at Georgia Tech, as I said, for 25 years. While at Georgia Tech, I founded the African American Development Officers Network. And as you mentioned, I also became the AFP Global Board Chair. That's a quick, real fast
Yeah.
summary of my career. But there might be others who are, on the webinar today, who had experiences of, finding themselves in a fundraising position. And there had to have been someone who said, you know what? I think that this is something that you can do. Most often, people don't really choose that for themselves. They kind of find themselves in a situation and somebody's encouraging them. And, so I hear all the time, as the founder and CEO of AADO, people email me, they call me, they stop me at conferences.
Mhm.
These are true quotes. I stumbled into fundraising. I don't know if this is what I'm really supposed to be doing. I have imposter syndrome and I'm just faking it till I make it. But what if I'm exposed and people discover I don't really have a clue?
Mm.
These goals and expectations are exhausting. Or how about the whole metrics thing takes all the joy out of
Mm.
raising money? These are some of the things that people have said to me. And so
Yeah.
when I talk about, did someone inspire you to get into it, or somebody you want to blame for you choosing a fundraising career? My mentor was Charles Stevens, and he actually was a senior executive with the United Negro College Fund. And he didn't actually encourage me to go into the profession. He actually encouraged me to stay. Because once I stumbled
Mm.
into it,
Yeah.
and, Jeff, I felt like I don't really know exactly what I'm doing and how can I be successful. I was thinking, this isn't the place for me. I need to quick, fast, in a hurry, get out. And he was the one who encouraged me and said, listen, this is, I see this in you and I see
Yeah.
the talent and you really should stay. And so then after that, I started feeling like, okay, maybe I can do this. But I started dealing with imposter syndrome because as a fundraiser and the expectations, I had $1 million goal working for
Mhm.
UNCF as an area director my first year in that role. And I was what's called a generalist, and I had to raise money from special events. I even did a bachelor bid, and corporate and foundation solicitations, a major gifts campaign. And so there were times when I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think people are going to figure that out. But let me tell you very quickly that, as I said, I've been in this profession for almost 40 years. But 3 years ago, I was speaking at a conference, and the end of my speech, they gave me, a tremendous applause, and I smiled and I felt good. And then the questions came, and someone asked a question that I couldn't answer, and I struggled with it, and that really impacted me because I felt like maybe after all these years, I really have been faking it till I make it.
Wow.
Imposter syndrome is when you doubt your own skills or accomplishments and feel like a fraud, even though others may see you as capable. But it's the fear of being found out as not good enough, despite any evidence that, you kind of doing a decent job. You do know what you're doing. But we all experience imposter syndrome, is what I want to share, no matter how long you've been in the profession. And so you need to understand that you're doing what excites you the most. You're passionate about your work. It brings you joy and fulfillment. Um, it's just an unexpected calling. How about you say that? Instead of, I'm an accidental fundraiser, I'm in an unexpected calling, because it's more than just a job. It's a purpose that allows you to help advance the mission of the organization that you serve. But here's how you can work on that imposter syndrome. You know, make sure that you're continuously learning and growing in your role. Don't settle for mediocrity. Are you developing new skills and
Mhm.
gaining valuable experience? Competence in fundraising comes from being curious, seeking knowledge, and committing to ongoing professional growth. And I know that are encouraging people all the time, because that's what
Yes,
Veritus, you
absolutely.
know, um, underscores as important. The most effective fundraisers are lifelong learners who evolve along the field. So even at almost 40 years, I am still learning. Consider what the trends are. Always look and take a look and search. What are the current trends,
Mhm.
so that you're investing in training. There are a lot of free trainings out there. Everything doesn't cost, but then choose some that cost, because it's an investment in yourself, your organization's investment in you, and you can stay right on the cutting edge of what's new and what's happening. And so, we've all heard this before. Choose a job you love. You'll never have to work a day in your life. And so also know, and I'm talking to people every day. I just had a conversation with someone this morning. There are opportunities out there. Fundraisers are needed. Listen, we get the job postings every day at AADO. And there are
Great.
lots of reasons. And,
Yes.
you can share the presentation. I won't go through all of this, but there are lots of reasons why organizations are looking for fundraisers.
Yep.
And so, I'll say that I think you've heard me share this before, that I met Justin Guarini, who was the first runner-up to Kelly Clarkson in the first American Idol.
Yeah.
And I sat next to him on the plane, and I told him that story of being encouraged to leave my major
Yeah.
at Fredonia. And he told me, you know, he's sorry that happened to me, but I ended up right where I needed to be. And I realized that it was only 2 years ago that I ran into him in 2023. And he said that to me. And so I really believe in telling a different story, that my story didn't begin with a plan to be a fundraiser, but I realized along the way that I was really doing what was changing lives and creating opportunity and building community. And that's when accident became a calling. So whether you or anyone out there listening arrived here by design or by chance, what matters now is the choice you make every day to learn, to grow and to lead with purpose and to think about yourself differently. You're not accidental, you are essential, and you're intentional, and you belong right where you are. So that was the fire hose version of the accidental fundraiser. And
Yeah, I love that.
happy to share and answer any questions or thoughts or
Well,
talk with you.
yeah, I have some questions. I'd love to know what are you hearing from people who are experiencing doubt or feeling like they don't have the experience and knowledge they need to address these current challenges.
Mhm.
What are you hearing out there, Birgit?
So, and I hear a lot of um, fundraisers just questioning their abilities because the environment has changed so much,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and excuse me, donor behaviors have changed. There's economic pressures, reduced budgets, as we know, have made even seasoned professionals feel uncertain. And because some feel that they fell into, fundraising and never received formal training,
yeah,
moves management or any of the things that help them really, understand the work and the profession formally. And now they're being asked to solve like increasingly complex problems like AI,
yeah,
DEI fatigue, corporate
right.
shifts, new compliance. And so I hear that a lot. Um,
Yeah,
Imposter syndrome, as I mentioned, and uh, being put in a position as leaders to support team members who are feeling this, right?
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
being put in the position of trying to address those, concerns
yeah.
and issues. So
I'm
that's what.
interested in, so you've been at this for 40 years.
Mhm.
You're now looking at it from an outside, like you retired, but you're not retired. You're
I'm,
active.
yes,
You're just
yes.
not doing the
I
development
retired from
director
one
thing
job.
anymore.
Yes.
Okay. Um, how long did it take for you personally to start feeling like I feel like I know what I'm doing here? And then what were some of the things that you did to help grow your own skill set and start eventually becoming that leader that you are today? So how long did
Mhm.
it take you to
Yeah.
feel that way?
Um, so that would, I felt like I was evolving. And so maybe in this almost 40 years, 37, 38 years, I might have sort of taken a step back and looked at, what the landscape looks like, what I'm dealing with, because my world was private foundations,
Yeah,
and they changed a lot in the 25 years. We used to be able to send a letter, get a check, and then it
yeah,
changed to formal applications and forms, and just a lot of changes along the way. So I felt like I was always evolving. But one of the ways, and I still do this now, is I always create this network of people around me. I look for those people who are knowledgeable in that
yeah,
specific area, or have had great careers. Or I was speaking with someone this morning, and they identified a particular challenge that they had, and I knew someone who had been through that exact challenge and come out shining on the other side. So I said, you need to have a conversation with this person so you can benefit from their experience. So I surround myself with people. I create what I call, and others call, my own board of directors. And I have people on that board of directors
I love
that
that.
can address certain things. I have someone on there who will not mince words, who will tell it to me like it is. They don't
Yes.
care if I get an attitude. They're going to say, listen, blah, blah, blah. I have someone who advises me on style and dress and, and I mean, so I have my go-to people, and it doesn't always stay the same. That evolves.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I haven't thought about it that way. You think about, well, I have mentors or I have people that I trust, but to have your own personal board of directors is a great way to look at that because
Hmm.
you're right. There are different areas, like you just mentioned, that we need help in or guidance in, and there's certain people in our lives that are best suited for those things.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I was able to, over my career. I mean, not only that,
Yeah.
I I'm a student of training, and making sure that when I hear something and I'm not familiar with it, that I, find a webinar or a training or somebody who can fill me in on that. I never like to be that person that goes, oh, right. Uh-huh, sure. I have no
Uh,
idea what they're talking about, you know, and I've got to go,
yeah.
what is that?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
talking about.
That's awesome. Please send in your questions. Use the Q&A. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of one. Maybe Birgit, you can look at Birgit as one of your board of directors today. So please send in your questions. Here's another question I have. As a leader, how do you manage the staff anxiety around job stability and help your team stay really focused on the work? Because right now
Yeah,
there's a lot of angst around this. So, how do you
yeah.
do that? How do you manage that anxiety?
Mm, Communication. And I haven't always had, leaders who wanted to communicate. um they know what they want to do, they know how they want to do it, and they give directives and want people to shuffle and move and do.
Yeah.
But I love those who want to communicate, so what's going on. Give us the truth, the reality. Tell us what's happening. And because silence, when you don't know, it breeds fear. And in addition to breeding fear, it causes your team members to, get in little groups and talk and try to figure out what's happening. It could be everything from staff changes to hearing that there are going to be some sort of budget cuts, or there isn't going to be money for professional development, or the organization is, under attack by, this, that, or the other, or donors, are taking issue.
Hmm.
And oftentimes those things are communicated at a more senior level, but it
Yeah.
doesn't trickle down to, the rank and file, the folks that are, really on the ground doing the work. And so communication, even short updates, I feel are really important. Remind the team, about mission and impact, because, I know that sounds corny, but
Hmm.
sometimes, like at the university, just to be able to engage with students, the leaders would bring students into our meetings and they would talk about the impact, being reminded why we do this work, and there's a purpose
Yes.
beyond the uncertainty. Um, Acknowledging the anxiety without dismissing it,
Yeah.
saying things like, I know this is worrisome, or I know this is unsettling. You
Yeah.
recognize and understand, and
Yeah.
always celebrate the wins, not just the big wins. I mean, again, at the university, we'd celebrate somebody that brought in $10 million, pop the champagne and whatnot, but not the one that brought in the $100,000 for the small program that impacted students in the community that really needed it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and involve your team in solution building. Listen, sometimes some of the best, ideas for resolution, for problem solving, comes from the team. You know,
Exactly.
um, and lastly, I would say, be a model as a leader of calm and optimism, not chaos and, frantic and
Yes.
I don't know, I'm worried about my job too, you set the emotional tone. So even quiet confidence can recenter, a worried team.
That is a good word. We've got a bunch of questions coming in, so let me start getting into some of them. First, though, Peggy asks if she loves that the whole idea around fundraising as a calling, and she's a chapter president elect for AFP and would love to quote you in LinkedIn. She just wants to know if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
All right,
100%.
that's great. Now,
Thank you. What was her name again?
oh, I just hold on.
Okay.
It
Well,
was
I'm saying
Peggy. Peggy.
Peggy. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for stepping up into that leadership role.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's-
All right, Maggie has a question. She says, I continue to see good fundraisers shifting over to become consultants, and
Yes.
fundraising consultants seem to be flooding the marketplace. What's your view on consultants, and how do you determine how or when to bring them on, and which one is right for your organization?
I get asked this question every week because I have so many organizations that are looking for consultants.
Yeah,
And they want to know, who do I know, and can I, recommend. This is a tough one, Jeff, because I don't want to, be negative about consultants, but I also want to manage the expectations of those who are looking for consultants. So first, let me say that this is just my opinion. So, don't send Jeff hate mail. You can, send me your message on LinkedIn. But I feel that people who should go into consulting are those that have had the experience. I'm just saying,
yeah,
sometimes folks say, well, I'm going to go into consulting because I'm
yes,
having trouble finding a job right now. It
yeah,
is not that easy to hang a shingle and say you're going to do consulting. I did it. I did it early on, some side consulting. It was tough. It was tough to get paid. It was tough to get paid what you felt that you were worth. And the expectations from organizations often are that you're going to come in and be a miracle worker, and if they don't know your organization intimately like you, they will not have the passion and they will not, be able to raise the money. And they don't always raise the money. They position you to raise the money or, tell you what you need to do.
mhm,
So, at AADO, what we do, we have a list of about 80 consultants, and, we'll have an organization put out an RFP without saying what the organization's name is. We'll run it by our consultants. They will do a paragraph of why they think they can support this arts-based organization or human service organization, what their fees are, and we'll vet that, and they'll have a smaller group to be able to to
yeah,
look through. Let me say one more thing, Jeff. For those of you who are considering consulting, I caution you to not to make sure that you do your homework so you know what rates to charge and that you charge that rate. And remember that there is no part-time work in fundraising. There just
yeah,
is no part-time work. And if you charge too little, you set the expectation for the organizations that say, well, Birgit Burton only charged, or she did it pro bono. So, all
yep.
right, that's my
Exactly.
soapbox.
All right. Michael asks, do you know of any free or reduced price trainings for organizations with small or no professional development budgets?
And so AADO has done, we
Yeah,
getting ready to start up again our monthly power hour. And you can be a member of AADO. If you're not a person of color, you can be an ally and a friend. We do have free membership.
yeah,
Um, my suggestion is to Google search, because I've run into them all the time. And sometimes even if it's 25 or $50, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Um, I know that there are plenty out there. They're expensive. I know that AFP membership, is cost prohibitive for some people. But a lot of webinars. If you consider doing an AFP membership and paying for it monthly, really only ends up being a little over $30.
Yeah.
Um, but what was the person's name?
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Michael.
Michael. Is that the Michael Colston? I'm looking at the
Yeah.
list of,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll see if I can find you some more.
Oh, very generous of you. Okay. Yvonne asks, how would you approach a company within the community to become a supporter of a museum? The company has direct ties to the museum, but not sure if they have been approached before. And follow up, once they become a supporter, how do you keep them long term?
So I'm concerned that you don't know that if they've been approached before or not, because that should be in your database. Somewhere you should
Yeah.
know if they've been approached, because if they have, there should be something in your records so you know what the reaction was, what the response, because how do you know how to approach them again? If it had been a no, don't ever bother us again, or no, not at this time. So your best approach is going to be knowing whether or not they've been approached previously. I've had the experience of approaching a foundation for capital campaign at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And I went with my vice president, and the head, it was a small foundation, and the head of the foundation was really incensed. She said,
Mm.
we were approached a decade ago. We gave to the campaign 10 years ago, and we never heard from Georgia Tech again. And so,
Wow.
the first 15 minutes of our visit was apologizing. We are so sorry, and we will make sure this never, happens again. If they're in the community, and what is the museum doing that might be of interest to that particular company? Where would they find interest in value? I would invite them to come
Yeah.
and see the museum, certainly during some special exhibition that's getting publicity and attention, and finding the connection. Oftentimes it can be through a board member at the museum. Uh, you
Hmm.
know, I met with a university president once and was looking at her board. And I said, do you know that this person is connected to so and so? She said, I didn't know that. I said, your board is amazing, and their circle of influence that extends beyond the board is incredible. You got some homework to do,
Yeah.
Madam
Yep.
President. In seeing where those connections are. That has impacted me when people have reached out to me as a donor. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And if we want to keep them, we know you got to continually be reporting back the impact of those gifts, you know,
Absolutely. I had a
and
foundation once that my vice president said after this particular gift that they had said, we're done, we're not giving anymore. And I didn't believe that. And
yeah,
so I kept making sure that twice a year we were reaching out, giving an update on the building they supported. And yeah, they ended up giving another $40,000 within a few years. I'm not saying it's just because, but it did have an impact that we didn't just say, okay, we're done, and leave it at that. So stewardship is huge,
it
huge.
is. Okay, we have a really big question here from Alexandra.
Oh no, is
Um,
this one that's gonna make me have imposter syndrome?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay,
Okay, so here it is. So,
okay.
Birgit, over your 35 to 40-year fundraising career,
Mhm.
have government interventions like conditional funding, legal requirements, administrative holds, or political pressures helped or hindered your trajectory and the way you communicate with donors and partners? Specifically, reflect on your worst experience involving government assets to launch the fair, the last minute hold on permits and release of public spaces that froze budget transfers, forced sponsor rescopes, and required a public partial cancellation. How has that kind of intervention shaped your strategies for transparency, narrative framing, and reputation management when negotiating with governments, funders, and communities? Whew.
What was her name?
Alexandra.
Hey, Alexandria. I am not the person to answer that question because during my career, I never engaged with government funding sources. All of my work was with private philanthropic foundations, individuals, and so I never had that direct experience. I actually avoided it like the plague.
Yeah.
On the several boards that I was on, Hosea Feed the Hungry and Homeless in Atlanta was one of the organizations that did receive government funding, and I avoided that. And actually, we hired an expert. So I'm just going to be honest and tell you
Yeah.
that I don't have an answer for that question because it has not been a part of my career at all in any
Yeah.
aspect. But I do know the challenges. I do know, that especially now, as I've been helping organizations find private funding to fill the gap of where they've
Yeah.
lost government funding that was consistent and really huge part of an organization's budget, helping them find the money to, to fill those gaps. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work and it's a lot of red tape and loopholes.
Sure
And
is.
so sorry, I can't answer that for you.
Well, we have a question from Rosalind.
Mhm.
She asks, over your career, what things did you do that helped you transition from individual contributor roles to leadership roles? For me,
Mm,
this feels related to proving one's values, skills, and expertise, as well as
mhm,
building and demonstrating the necessary people management and leadership skills.
mhm. I like that question. You know, I think that um, how I demonstrated my leadership skills really had a lot to do with learning. I'm gonna write about this one day, so you can quote me. People might figure out who I'm talking about, but I had some experiences where I had to learn to actually manage up.
Yeah.
You know, it was difficult, but I am headstrong. I don't like being told what to do, and I feel like what I think we should do is the right thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I've had some challenges in my career where I had managers that were not going to let me show my leadership skills because they were busy managing me. So,
Mhm.
and, kind of putting my light under a bushel,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if there was a little competition there, or fear, because sometimes, leaders can see you shining and then fear that you're going to outshine them, and surpass them. And so learning how to manage up, and I'll give you an example what I mean by that. Somebody, constantly, when you share an idea and it gets kind of squashed,
Yeah.
and discounted, um, learning how to not, excuse me for using this word, but, be a wimp, but learning how to demonstrate your skills and mine was in fundraising
Yeah.
and bringing in some really significant foundation grant opportunities and working with those foundations, which nobody can, discount or discredit. It is what it is. And so I
Right.
feel that when you do the best you can, and are successful at your job, your light shines, and people will see you as being a leader. And when you give back and share, as I always did with my team, sharing advice and counsel, but guess what? Letting them shine, right? People really respect it when you say, hey, let's give a hand to Jeff because he really did a great job of securing that, particular donor. I have seen Jeff, and I don't know, do we lose the person's name? Because I like to call out people's
Rosalind.
names. Rosalind. Listen, Rosalind, I have seen people in my career fight over gifts, right? Who was the one who
Mhm.
made the first contact introduction? Who, solicited? Who gets the credit, right?
Mhm.
I actually um, was significant in bringing in a major gift at $30 million and somebody else took credit for it.
Mm.
And, they got the paper credit, but the people who saw me and how I cultivated that relationship, including the donor, knew that I was the leader in securing that. And so I, in my heart of hearts, knew, as well as those around me knew, as well as the donor, but I have the satisfaction of actually still having a relationship with that donor
Oh,
and
neat.
knowing that, I was significantly instrumental in securing that gift. And that helped people to see me, as a leader. So sometimes being a leader means managing up and, not fighting with that other leader who wants to, kind of keep
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
suppressed.
There's another nuance around that individual contributor to management role, too. This often happens in nonprofits, and we talk about it at Veritus a lot, but I'd like to get your thoughts around it. The way we're set up, especially as frontline fundraisers, a really good frontline fundraiser is someone that likes to get results through their own efforts. Whereas managers typically love to get results through others. They love to develop others to become better at what they're doing. And a really good frontline fundraiser might not be the best manager because they're wired differently.
Yes,
Yet at nonprofits, many times frontline fundraisers can't be promoted or get more money unless they're in management. And
right.
and so they make the managers and then they fail at that because they're not really wired that way.
Sure.
How have you seen that in your
Oh,
career?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I get that 100%. And a great example is thinking about education, schools, the classroom, right?
Yeah.
The best teacher in the classroom who's really good at igniting the interest and excitement of those students, that they say, Miss Burton was the greatest science teacher I ever had. Oh my gosh, she made me love science. And then they promote Miss Burton to, assistant principal, her principal, and
Yeah.
they're handling administrative things and
Yeah.
responsible for the teachers and hiring the teacher. And they're not in the classroom,
Right.
and so listen, I have never aspired to be a vice president for development.
Hmm.
Not because I wouldn't want, listen, I've seen some of the salaries. I'm like, I could do that. That's great.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the on the ground work, working
Mhm.
with the foundations, working with individuals, that's where I get my excitement. And, being a vice president responsible for whether we fail or succeed, responsible for the hirings and the letting goes and managing the team does not excite me
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I see this so much happen in the nonprofit space, and hopefully leaders and managers can really discern and really, for those frontline fundraisers that are right there talking with foundations or with individuals, we need to learn how to compensate them well without promoting them into some kind of senior management thing, you
Oh,
know?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've seen that AADO did a survey one year. We did it twice
Yeah.
um, to find out what the titles are.
Yeah.
And then we did it again, and all these organizations were coming up with creative titles so that they could find ways to, you
Yeah.
know, uh, give people raises and advance them,
Yeah.
because director of development, director of development, director of development, director of development, it's like
Yeah.
me, I was the associate director for foundation relations. Then I got promoted to director of foundation relations. And then I looked at the other, tier one universities, research universities. And I said, okay, I'm going to be the senior director of foundation relations. And then I looked and, oh, okay, now we have executive director. So I got promoted. I made the case. I wrote, I made the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Executive, I was going for AVP. And then I said, you know what, I'm tired. I'm retiring. But that
Yeah.
was my next title.
Yeah. 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 Well, that is all of our great questions. I want to thank everyone here being with us today and for sharing all those questions with us. And if you want more support and community to support you as a leader, then head over to the Veritus Community Hub. This is a free community space that's designed to create opportunities for people like you to ask questions and connect on common topics and learn from your peers. Be on the lookout for more leadership focused sessions coming next month and in 2026. So thank you for being with us. Birgit, thank you for being here. It was
My
such a pleasure
pleasure.
having you here.
Yes.
I could
Thank you.
spend all day with you.
Well, thank you. I want to
Mhm.
ask one question. I
Yeah.
see that Regine Clement said, I wasn't expecting this, a very different kind of webinar. Thank you. And if she minds either putting in the webinar chat or messaging me on LinkedIn, I'd like to know what she was thinking, in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
the topic on accidental fundraiser, because it always helps me,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's anything missing, or, if this really kind of met a need she didn't have. I'd appreciate that. So shoot me a
Yes, we are.
message.
We are going to show Birgit's slides because it'll be in the recording, so you'll have all of that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Mhm.